Welcome to this series of TrainX videos on when live virtual technical training becomes just an expensive webinar, benefiting the provider, not the learner. Your training is an investment and should deliver real value. To do that, it must be effective, timely, and relevant. Let's start with a number from the UK's largest training provider. The projected revenue from just one of their 5-day training events is £96,048. This revenue is achieved by compromising the quality of the training in order to attain a huge profit. This is an astounding number considering it's a virtual event with a WebEx subscription costing less than £20 per month and with a salaried trainer at around £230 per day. While the examination and materials fees also need to be added in, the virtual classroom costs are negligible compared to those of a traditional in-person event. You'll notice that the actual shopping basket calculation shows a £40,000 drop on their standard website price. This is due to an offer that is in breach of the Advertising Standards Authority's regulations. QA were contacted by the ASA in January 2026 but have been ignoring this. Controversially, this pricing is far below the UK Government Procurement Service's existing purchase pricing from QA. This allows QA to subsidise their website sales in order to dominate the market. They use high-capacity virtual classrooms to create more product to sell. It clearly illustrates that their pricing is arbitrary and exploitative. Later we'll show you that they actually sell well below even this offer price. Consider their standard website pricing. The math speaks for itself. QA charges premium prices, yet its class sizes can be comparable to those found in UK primary schools. As we'll demonstrate, the instructor-to-learner ratio is suboptimal. Why would QA jeopardize the quality of their product? The answer is greed and economic drivers. QA's owners, CVC Capital Partners, have two circa $50 million yachts to keep afloat, a massive high-interest credit facility to finance, and behind all this, some interesting patterns in their share price. Given the above, should public organizations be buying 12-month non-refundable blocks of training from QA? Rather than being quality-driven, they are party-driven, from super yachts for their billionaire owners to overseas parties and lavish award ceremonies for their highest-performing salespeople. Here's QA's advert to recruit a business development manager. The bonuses are uncapped and exceeding the sales target opens the door to further partying. Next up in 2026 is a VIP all-expenses-paid trip to Ibiza. Bear in mind that public bodies make up a high proportion of QA's customer base. Can an NHS buyer support a purchase from an organization that does not cap its bonuses and seemingly is also overly lavish with its class sizes? Apparently, it is not enough to wait for trips to Ibiza to have a laugh when you are at QA. Their principal lecturer in professional best practice appears to be blissfully unaware that being a trainer is not a personal forum. It is also indicative of poor judgment within QA's management and marketing functions that this article was allowed to be published. In a moment, we'll provide a brief overview of the adult learning theory developed by Malcolm Knowles. Along with his colleagues, he looked at the motivation behind adult learning and some of the context that builds efficiency in knowledge transfer. There may be no one-size-fits-all instructor-to-learner ratio, but have a look at some examples from the ratios used by the British military. British military training is world-renowned. The ratios shown were provided to the UK Parliament, which has oversight on quality and funding. One point of interest is that as the complexity and risk of the task at hand increases, the ratios are radically different. They definitely are not determined by how many attendees can be crammed into a physical or virtual classroom. The UK government funds training from QA, but it seems that a soldier does not receive uncapped bonuses or fun all-expenses-paid party trips. Let's spend a moment considering adult learning. You know how it is. You start life full of energy and maybe learning is relatively easy. At school you've an hour for reading, an hour for history, an hour for maths. There's no reason to study other than you're at school and it's expected by your teachers. Then suddenly you're an adult with all kinds of pressures and maybe a little less energy. Most likely you don't own a superyacht, but you've a mortgage, family, and a pension to fund. There's a need to prioritize and be strategic in all things, including your learning goals and skills acquisition. Choosing an effective skills provider will save you energy, time, and money. This is the context that influenced Malcolm Knowles' research. He and colleagues listed 6 principles which we're describing at a high level. The first is that a learner needs to know why they need to learn something before they commit to it. For example, a learner on a project management course would want to know the reasons for studying, say, basic risk analysis within the course. The trainer should clarify its relevance with the successful delivery of a project. The next principle considers how learners tend to see themselves as self-directing and want a degree of ownership in regard to their learning. During a project management course, the learner may wish to relate the study area to their own project management experience rather than just follow a set of slides and generic exercises. Typically, the training is more productive when the learner can ask questions and test ideas that map to their own work context. This takes a certain amount of time and is key to a training event being effective. It is also a major limiting factor on how an event can scale in regard to the number of attendees. We'll explore this a little later in the video. The third principle recognizes that adults bring their existing knowledge and experience. This shapes how they understand new ideas. Often on a project management course, the learners encounter a variation of something they've already experienced, such as running a budget. Sufficient time and discussion during the training helps the learner to connect their experience to the concepts within the course. The fourth principle recognizes that learning takes effort and it's easier when there is a real and immediate need within the learner's life or work. If the learner has just been asked to lead a project, they are more likely to engage than if they are just sitting on a course to make up numbers or to use up some training budget. The fifth principle describes how it's easier for an adult to orientate themselves to learning when it's practical and problem-centered rather than just theoretical. Solving realistic and relatable problems makes learning far easier than just rote memorization. The sixth principle concerns itself with how learner motivation is key. While adults may be influenced by external factors, innate interest in gaining more confidence, performing better, or having career progression opportunities helps with learning engagement. Malcolm Knowles was essentially telling us that given the right environment, we can all still learn a few new tricks. We've had some insights into adult learning from Malcolm Knowles. Now let's have input from Fred Brooks, author of The Mythical Man Month. His communication pathways discussion is particularly relevant when considering adult learning principles. Brooks described a formula for the number of communication pathways in a group. Malcolm Knowles, meanwhile, emphasized peer discussion, where each learner's experience becomes a resource for everyone else. The formula is simple. N is the number of people involved. With 2 people, there is 1 pathway. As more people join, the number of communication channels grows quadratically. And one of those people is the instructor. This is part of what makes adult learning effective. One learner's question can help the whole group. A learner may also raise a point that the instructor needs to clarify for everyone. Take a project management course. One attendee may be a logistics expert. Their input can bring real value to the group, and other learners may benefit from hearing their insights and from directly asking them questions. That does not mean everyone needs to communicate directly with everyone else. But it does mean there should be peer discussion, guided by the instructor. So training is not just a lecture. It should include on-topic discussion between experienced adults, aimed at helping the whole group learn. But that takes time, and it creates a practical upper limit to the number of attendees. Questions, discussion, and clarification all need to be built into the design of the course. Before COVID, QA typically capped courses at 16 attendees. The floor plans and desk layouts at their St. Catherine Docks training rooms bear this out. While cramped, it appears to have been their standard capacity. They also have some technical training rooms that are much higher capacity. COVID pushed QA's delivery into virtual classrooms. QA has kept pricing the same for virtual and in-person courses, even though the delivery cost per event is much lower online. Over time, they've continued to increase sizes to profiteer. We're aware that they can now run virtual classrooms with 29 attendees. Look at what that does to the number of communication pathways. This is not learner-centered in any sense whatsoever. TrainX believe that quality is the primary goal and limit our public virtual classrooms to just 6 learners. This is to allow us to meet the ideals of adult learning. Our pass rates eclipse QA's and our standard pricing is significantly lower. There is also only a fraction of the pre-work and evening work requirements for our project management courses compared to QA's. We'll demonstrate the reasons for this shortly. Shown on a chart, the impact of QA's profiteering attempts on the ideal adult learning model is stark. Communication takes time. In a relaxed and familiar social circumstance, the conversation can flow at 150 or more words per minute. Equally, in the right company, no words may be needed. But that's clearly very different from the requirements of a measured, thought-through business presentation. As an example, President Kennedy, famed for his 300+ words a minute public speaking, slowed the pace to just 100 for his inaugural speech. Competently delivered technical training has further complexity and timings to meet the requirement for true interaction. For a successful in-person event, the effective number of words per minute can be very low even though the training is optimal. One reason for this is wait time. Particularly when an instructor poses a question to the whole group, there can be a delay of several seconds before any learner responds. This delay is typically slightly longer during a virtual classroom than an in-person one due to the additional friction encountered in this modality. This is one reason that TrainX limit our public virtual classroom attendance to 6 persons, whereas our in-person public events have a ceiling of 8. We've been examining some of the key ideas behind adult learning and communication. These are applicable to both in-person and virtual training environments. Virtual training also brings its own specifics, often referred to as virtual classroom friction. This again reduces how much a virtual classroom can scale before the learning is compromised. You've probably experienced this, so we'll be brief. Let us know your own examples in the comments below. The graphic represents a virtual class of 29 learners. In a virtual classroom, even asking a simple question takes longer. Learners have to unmute, avoid talking over others, and wait to be noticed. Questions in chat can be missed, delayed, or answered too late. That slows clarification and can leave learners uncertain for longer. Learners are constantly switching between slides, labs, notes, chat, and screen sharing. That extra effort breaks concentration and interrupts flow. Sound problems, lag, freezing, and reconnecting all add delay. Even small technical issues can disrupt understanding and momentum. Virtual learners also face distractions that do not exist in the classroom: pets, children, work calls, parcel deliveries, etc. All of these pull attention away from the session and make it harder to stay engaged. Of course, there are multiple advantages to virtual classroom training. By recognizing the inherent limitations and by providing intelligent mitigations, training can be entirely successful. However, to create and maintain an exemplary adult learning environment, participant numbers have to be low. Otherwise, at best, you've an expensive webinar. Coming up next in this series of videos, there's further in-depth information to help you decide whether QA should be your provider. You'll see how keen they are to tell you how trustworthy they are. For example, have some 7,000 organizations been served by them, or is it some 4,000? Both of these graphics appear on the same page of their website. They have a blog telling you that you don't need to be an expert at anything, and that you don't need a team because AI can do all the work for you. But after publishing it, they must have realized that they need to sell training to cover their massive debts and pay for all the partying. So the following blog says that you and your colleagues need more training than ever now that AI is in town. You'll gain insights into their abysmal quality record. They were the major subcontractor in KPMG's ousting by Ofsted. You'll see that they'll film a girl's backside and put it on YouTube to try to draw in more punters at their Manchester office. You'll learn that their chairman will mislead the UK government just to get sales in. You'll also see an email exchange where they drop their pre-VAT pricing from £2,760 to £1,200. But it's not all dark and dastardly stuff. After all, they're monitoring their audience response to see which of their one-liners gets a laugh during their overpriced stand-up training. Hopefully you'll find being rammed either physically or virtually into a corner amusing while they test out their puns on you. Thank you for watching. See part 2 of this series of videos to learn even more.